Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of Glam Metal Gems. So it's been a long time since I've done one of these episodes. I thought it was about time. A lot of you guys seem to be really excited about the different glam metal things that I've brought up recently. So we're going to do one of these, and this is where I like to take a deeper look into the genre itself, at bands and albums that sort of slip through the cracks. A lot of you guys know that I am a fan of sort of deeper cut songs, albums, things like that, stuff that isn't the typical big hits that are across the radio. But if you love the genre and you want some more of that sort of stuff, I'm going to be shining a light on these sort of lost gems through this series, Glam Metal Gems, and we're going to take a look at a bunch of these here in just a bit. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by turning on notifications, you're going to stay up to date on really cool episodes like this, Glam Metal Gems. So let's jump into this. I'm just going to do these alphabetical, and there's no sort of real rhyme or reason except that I really like these albums. And I hope you guys, if you don't know about them, will search them out. Maybe you too will fall in love with these. All right, so first one up here is one that I have talked about recently, but I definitely wanted to put it in one of these episodes here because it is so deserving. Bangalore Choir, On Target. I can't say enough great stuff about this album. Came out in 1992, a little too late. Grunge hit in 1991, late 1991, but albums and things were still being recorded and released into early 92 and stuff like that. And this is just one of those that is so good, but it just, was under the radar, slipped through the cracks, that kind of stuff. It's the debut studio album from the band. And I'm going to give you some background on these things because there's also a little more to search into these bands than just the fact of them being great albums. In this case, it was like a little mini super group. We had David Reese on vocals, David Reese coming from the band, except he'd replaced Udo Dirkschneider as vocalist in the band. After that, this was the project that he did here, while not sounding at all like Accept, because they were much heavier and more into the metal thing. And this was straight up glam metal sounding stuff here. It's really quite good. We also had Ian Mayo on bass coming from Hurricane Alice, which is another fantastic release. If you're not familiar with this band here, I would definitely put this in a Glam Metal Gems episode as well. Tear Down the House, Tear the House Down is the title of this one. And just note the way it is spelled, H-E-R, as in a girl, Hurricane Alice, instead of the typical way it's spelled. But you had Ian Mayo on bass from that band, and Hurricane Alice came out in 1990, so some of you may be more familiar with this than this project here, and that's kind of why I want to show both of these. Jackie Ramos on drums, also from Hurricane Alice, was part of Bangalore Choir, and then we had Kurt Mitchell on guitar rounding out the lineup, and John Kirk also on guitar. Some of the songs are written by some famous musicians as well. Angel in Black was written by Steve Plunkett from Autograph. That's one of my favorite tracks on there. And Doing the Dance was written by John Bon Jovi and Aldo Nova. The rest of them written by guys in the band and stuff like that. In all, Bangalore Choir's released 3 studio albums, but only this lineup appears on the first one, and for me at least, only the first album sounds anything like the glam metal stuff. They got much heavier and kind of did a different thing later on. But there you go. Definitely recommend checking out Bangalore Choir, On Target. All right, next one to talk about, Cats in Boots, Kicked and Clawed from 1989, debut, one and only studio album. But I'm going to sort of put a little caveat with that because there was a Japanese-only release later on that collected up some demos that were recorded for a proposed second album years later. It doesn't sound anything like this debut. And it ultimately did come out. I found it miraculously at Sound Exchange, one of my favorite record stores, never knowing anything about it and so little info online. But there is that out there if you are a diehard Cats in Boots fan. You can check that out. And they did release another demos collection, forget its name, later on as well. But only actual album to come out is this one here, Kicked and Clawed, 1989. their sort of gimmick at the time was that they were a half American, half Japanese band, sort of taking the best of the best from the East and West, you know, that kind of thing. But the lead vocalist is why I'm zeroing in on this group, Joel Ellis. And I came to know the band first, or know him first, through Heavy Bones, which you might recognize. This came out in 1992, and another absolutely fantastic album, which featured Gary Hoey on guitar extraordinaire himself, and Frankie Banali on drums from, of course, Quiet Riot. So you had this, I tuned in for this and knew about this, and then loving the vocalist in there, Joel Ellis, I had to look into him some more, finding out that he was part of this band, Cats and Boots. And I have to say, this came out in 1989, and it is some of the sleaziest, dirtiest sounding lyrics. And when I say dirty, I just mean down and dirty kind of stuff, you know, not nasty in that regard, but just, you know, the way that you want that stuff to just be dripping with sleaze and everything in terms of its sound. The style is really what I'm referring to here. This album is that. Opening track on here, Shotgun Sally. Check that song out and tell me if you don't think that is just one of the you know, epitome of sleaze metal sound that was at that time. Just one of the subgenres of glam metal is what I'm referring to, if you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about right now. All right, we'll move on to the next one here. Kathmandu, self-titled release from 1991. Debut, one and only album from this band here. Reason I want to bring it to prominence here is that the lead vocalist in there is none other than Dave King, who came from Fastway, this debut album in 1983. I think he recorded 4 albums with the group, might even be 3. Yeah, I believe it was 4 albums with the group before leaving. If you don't know about Fastway, Fastway is another excellent sort of, you know, lost glam metal gem. Not a lot of people know about it, but they had some notoriety simply because of the story behind the band, being Fast Eddie Clarke of Motorhead and Pete Way of UFO forming the group, although Pete Way wasn't part of it by the time they released an album. But they also had Jerry Shirley of Humble Pie and the unknown vocalist Dave King, who later goes on to Kathmandu, and then from here goes on to Flogging Molly, which is an Irish folk band, and had a lot of success with that, but sounding nothing like the first 2 groups. But if you are a big fan of Fastway, and you want a little bit more of that, albeit a little bit maybe more mature or modern sounding by the time 1991 rolled around, sort of stripping away a lot of that metal and going more for the straight sort of blues rock, Kathmandu is one of those, and I would highly recommend that. Okay, next one up, Kill for Thrills, Dynamite from Nightmare Land, 1990, debut studio album, although the band did have an EP that came out before this with 3, 4, maybe 5 songs, can't remember exactly, on it. Some of them appeared later on here, and other ones were you know, unique to that, so it was kind of cool. But one and only studio album. Little bit of a super group in the sense, or name notoriety is really what I should say. Guitarist and vocalist is none other than Gilby Clarke, and of course we all know him from having joined Guns N' Roses and taking over for Izzy Stradlin, and of course putting out an absolutely fantastic debut solo album in 1994. So you had him, but he had come from an earlier sort of teen heartthrob band called Candy, and then formed this group here, getting, you know, more tough and dirty into the glam metal and that sort of stuff. But we also had Todd Muscat, who is brother of Brent Muscat from Faster Pussycat. So if you're a fan of Faster Pussycat and you want to know what the rest of the household was doing, it was this. We also have Jason Nesmith on guitar, who is the son of Michael Nesmith of the Monkees. So a little bit of you know, nepotism there, or whatever. That seems to be a hot word these days within the movie industry, and certainly within music industry and stuff like that too. I could care less. But he would do some solo albums and other projects and stuff, and certainly prove his own work. But he's the lead guitarist for Kill for Thrills. So just kind of cool note, and Dave Scott was on drums. But very cool lineup. Motorcycle Cowboys, because Gilby Clarke would go on and also be part of Slash's Snake Pit. They would do Motorcycle Cowboys and songs like that. And, you know, he wrote some really great tunes. Of course, he only recorded the one album with Guns N' Roses, which was a covers album, Spaghetti Incident. But this band here, he would go on, you know, for the rest of his career playing some of these tunes live and stuff like that. And they certainly did it with Slash's Snake Pit and things. So, again, worth checking out. But if you're a fan of his solo album, Slash's Snake Pit, stuff like that, check out Kill for Thrills. Okay, the final one to talk about here, Shark Island Law of the Order from 1989, second studio album. Not a lot of people know that. They had School, as in S''cool, bus. That was their debut album, came out in 1986, but then this, you know, as they morphed and really became sort of the glam metal sound, because that one from 86 was not quite what we've got here. And so the band in all has released 4 albums under the name Shark Island, but you can count 5 if you go all the way back to their 1982 album that was released under the name The Sharks. This is not the same one that had, I want to say it's Andy Frazier of Free in the lineup, but this version of the band, it was an independent release, released an album in 82 called Alter Ego. So you could count that. You know, I don't really, I just consider the ones that are under the name Shark Island. But anyway, the reason I'm telling you guys about this band here is for its vocalist, Richard Black, who you might know from the 1991 album Contraband, which was one of the first supergroups to sort of kick things off when that became a really big deal to do, although this one didn't take off so much. But we had Tracy Guns of LA Guns on guitar, Cher Peterson on bass from Vixen, Bobby Blotzer on drums from Rat, Richard Black on vocals from Shark Island, and Michael Schenker on guitar from MSG. So loving this. And they actually do one of the songs on here, Bad for Each Other, which is a Shark Island song. And just was one of those things where when this one here was so good and wish they had made the second album and then it never materialized kind of a thing. Later on finding this one from 1989, and this thing here sounds so much like it that really I kind of consider these one and the same. If I pull either one out, I want the other one because it's just, both of them are that good. So if you're a huge fan of the Contraband album and you want more but didn't know about Shark Island, that's what I'm recommending to you guys. So there you go. You actually ended up getting 10, sort of 2 for Tuesday, since today's Tuesday. I thought that'd be a little interesting thing here as part of this episode of Glam Metal Gems. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts on this. If you want more of these to continue and stuff like that, I could start doing a few more of these things and we can have a little bit of a focus on some glam metal. As I said, from some of the metal or the music forum and going live streaming events and things that I've done, there's been a lot of talk about glam metal and those things. So I thought I'd bring this back and see what you guys feel about it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. All right, everyone, take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.